Okay, so thank you very much indeed for coming back. And this is the second talk for today, and in fact, the last talk of the English Fluency Summit. We have with us today Martin Johnston from the Rock and Roll English podcast. Martin teaches English through real life stories on his podcast, and he doesn't really like using textbooks. He helps people to get fluent through better listening and better pronunciation skills. So thank you so much for joining us, Martin. Thank you so much for coming to the Fluency Summit. And I'd like to hand over to you.
Thank you for that introduction. I'm very honoured and very happy to be here. So the first thing it's going to be maybe a bit of an interactive talk, hopefully. So you might need to write some things in the chat because I'll be asking you to write some things, or you can just do the traditional pen and paper as you prefer. So one thing which I say a lot, and I truly believe is the key to fluency, is this: to become a fluent speaker, first you need to be a fluent listener. When you are a fluent listener, you'll become a fluent speaker. And I will talk about this. Hopefully this will make more sense by the end of the talk. And they are actually very well connected because, as mentioned, first you need to be a fluent listener to become a fluent speaker, but fluent speakers are also fluent listeners. Something which I will explain later is this: if you can say it, you can hear it. Okay, so there's a technique called speaking for listening, which we're actually going to practice later. But as I said, this should make more sense later. So yes. So many people here, I imagine if you're here and you understand what I'm saying, you would be at least here, kind of like intermediate. Now, obviously the ultimate goal for fluency is to get here. Now, the traditional approach, I suppose, is this: to study more vocabulary and more grammar, which, and I'm not saying don't do that, but I just want to explain how listening comes into this, because as mentioned, this is the traditional approach. But especially when you get kind of around, let's say, let me just get this. When you get around sort of this mark, go away. When you get around here, for example, if you go to English school and you study like an upper intermediate course, or even you might even be here, the grammar and vocabulary they'll be teaching you is not really used very much. So you might learn words like debunk. Well, I won't explain the word, but you'll be using words which are not so common. And then you actually often lose them because they're not so common. Because you've actually got a good grasp already of grammar and vocabulary. Or grammar, you might be studying tenses like this: I will have been married for 50 years by the time I'm 80, which aren't really used that much. But because you've already studied most of the grammar and vocabulary, it's like you have to study something. Let's teach you the really complicated stuff, which you don't really use very much. And in fact, a little statistic, I'm going a bit off track here, is for vocabulary, the top 1,000 words in English, and I guarantee everyone here knows those words. If you look at the top 1,000 words, they are things like and, cat, house, dog, things like this. They make up 89% of daily conversation. So that means if you know these 1,000 words, theoretically, you should be able to understand 89% of conversation. So what I'm sort of, one of the messages I'm trying to give is to reach this, like the fluency place, let's say. It's not all about vocabulary, because if you're learning the 11%, that sometimes is not the best use of your time. So the way I do things, my key to fluency is this, what I call sound training. Okay, so like training at the gym, but with sounds. Okay, so this is what we're going to talk about today: sound training. So yes, when you do sound training, it will change the way you hear and speak forever. Now, I want to demonstrate this visually. Okay, because once you have done this sound training, so I think we mentioned earlier about getting familiar with the sounds, it kind of removes a block so you can understand much easier. But I want to try and represent this visually. Okay, so I'm going to ask you to write something in the chat in a minute. So get ready. I've got the chat here, so I'm going to look. And I want you to write, what does this say? See if anyone can write that. Just write what you think. Let's have a look what people say. Okay, wow, you are amazing. Everyone has got it. Okay, so you actually got that. Okay, someone just got my friend John, but okay, people got that. Excellent. So, but my question is, was that difficult? Like, so compare that to that. Okay, if I had asked you to write that, you would have got it in a second. Okay, so this is what I mean. When you're listening, it's like you have this block on you, okay, like coming into your head. Once you can remove it, okay, it will be coming into your head like this. I hope that makes sense. This is how I'm trying to represent it with your eyes, what is happening with your ears. Okay, once you remove that block, it will come into your ears nice and clear like that. Okay, so here is what I call the science behind English. Okay, a really scientific thing here. So this is you or me, all of us. This is our ears. Okay, and this is our mouth. Okay, so it basically works like this. This is what I was trying to explain earlier. What comes in, it comes in and comes out. Okay, the problem is if there is some kind of block here, like this blur, also the stuff that's coming out, there will be a problem. So the goal is to remove this. So it comes in nicely and then it comes out nicely, because if there is that block there, which we all have, that is where your problems are. Okay, so we want to try and get rid of that block. Okay, so I'm going to talk to you today about how to do that. So yeah, getting rid of that block means then it's coming in much clearer. It's coming in like this and not like this. Okay. Like I said, I hope that makes sense. So the problem for when words come in, especially in English, in comparison to other languages, is words change in fast speech. Okay, so again, what's coming in, the words change, and you can't recognize that. Okay, so I'll give you an example of this in 1 second, but before that, I just want to talk about an analogy to again try and make this clear. Okay, and this is do people know what this is? The name of this thing? Just get the first person to say it. I think people know this. The name of this thing, greenhouse. There we go. Okay, greenhouse, garden, jungle. Okay, so in the greenhouse, all of the words, the plants are represent words. Okay, so they represent words. They are all separated. But nobody talks like this. If people spoke like this, it would be easy to understand. But unfortunately, that's not the case. And then we have the garden, where the words now, the plants are connected, but in a more orderly way. Okay, so you have like, hello, my name is Martin. But then when you get into the jungle, the plants, you can't even see where they begin and when they finish. Okay, and that's what I call jungle English, which is the most difficult to understand. So this must mean I want to ask you to write something. So okay, you can put this in the chat again. Okay, I'm going to say something. This is something I say. I would say the most common thing I say in my day-to-day life in England. Okay, and I want to see if you can understand. Okay, are you ready? Right, put it in the chat. Sight. 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 So I can see even Claire's having difficulty with this. Okay, so now I'll give you some context. Actually, I've seen the correct answer. So well done to Marina there. It's all right. So I say this of when, for example, I'm on my bike and someone is crossing the road when they shouldn't be, and they say sorry, and I say sight. Now, going back to my analogy, let me show you how this would be represented. Okay, if it had been the greenhouse, it would be like this. It is all right. But I'm not going to stand there on my bike and say, it is all right. I would sound like a computer. Here it would be, it's all right. It's all right. And in the garden would be like, sight, sight, sight. So that's what I mean about the difference. So you might hear the garden, let's say it may be on like BBC English, but if you come to the UK, you're going to hear this a lot. So yeah, the greenhouse is kind of like how a computer talks. If you go on an online dictionary, that's how the word sounds in the perfect version, but you don't often hear that perfect version. The garden is the target for speaking, because it's not a good idea to talk like the jungle. It's the target for speaking. You want to be clear. But the jungle is there for listening purposes. Okay, so if you talk to someone, maybe from the UK, or you watch films, you need to know how people talk in the jungle. So how can we understand jungle English and become fluent listeners? Okay, so it can be taught. Okay, just like riding a bike can be taught, or driving a car, listening can be taught. I mentioned earlier, maybe for people that hadn't arrived yet, how in English language teaching, listening is always just tested. It is not taught. Okay, so in fact, teach, not test. So I have a way to actually teach listening, because no one has actually probably ever sat down and told you what to look for, how to listen in English. They just give you some questions. Did you get the right answer? Yes or no? If no, okay, unlucky. Let's do this again next week. So yeah, I actually tried to teach it. So here is how to become a fluent listener. Now we are going to go through these in a bit more detail. So to master the 44 sounds of English, number 1. Number 2, to understand the music of English, syllables and connected speech. And number 3, to retrain your ear with transcription. Okay, so to actually do these activities and see how it changes. Now, I always use this story as well. That is me. That was when I lived in Italy, and that is me with my foldable bike. Okay. Now, I had never seen a foldable bike in my life, and then one day a friend came to my house and had a foldable bike, and I said, "Oh, that is amazing! Oh my god!" And then the next day, I went outside and I saw 100 foldable bikes. Okay, because someone had brought my attention to it. So someone brought my attention to it, and I saw it. It was already there. I just didn't notice. So it's the same with this. When someone brings your attention to these things, the way you listen will completely change. Okay, it's just no one's actually brought these things to your attention. On that, actually, another thing is many English teachers, myself included, are very scared of these things. Well, I was like this anyway, because it is quite complicated if you don't understand how it works. So yes, sound. So I am English. I went to Italy to live, and like most people, I took the sounds from my language and I applied them in Italian. Now, that is not the way to do it. Each language, okay, different languages have different sounds. It's totally normal. Okay, so if you really want to master that language, you have to master these sounds. But someone needs to show you how to do that. I used this analogy as well, but for people that haven't seen it, I'll just repeat this. So again, to represent this visually, okay, imagine you're sending an email, but you have this keyboard and you're missing all of these. Okay, so when you write that email, I'll get a vowel in there as well. So when you write that email on that's going to be very difficult. And that is what it's like for speaking. Once you don't have those sounds, you are limited in what you are doing. So something to reach fluency is to master the sounds. So where are we? Okay. Oh, that didn't happen right. Not in the right order. Never mind. So it was supposed to be the sounds first. So this is like the 44 sounds of English. Now, most people see those and have this reaction. And that includes English teachers. I would say for the first 8 years of my English teaching career. That was my reaction every time I saw that. I was like, oh my God, this is horrible. I don't want to know. But actually mastering this, like anything, once you sit down and learn it and someone teaches you it, it's not that difficult. So I thought we could even try a few here. Some that cause a lot of difficulty. So this one is an easy sound. So I'll teach you this sound, and I'm going to teach you the movement. Okay. So in fact, if you look at me, I'm not even going to say it. Okay. You're going to say it. Okay. Watch this. Now, you're all muted, but I can see some people actually even doing it. So that obviously is a E sound, okay? Now, the next two cause a lot of difficulty, and we're going to look at this. So this one here is an E, and this is an A, like bed and bad. Okay, so maybe I'm not really big enough, but this is all actually in the tongue. You can't really see this. E, A, E, A, E, A. So it's all on the position of where your tongue is. So, and if in fact, if I went from the one above, that would be like this: E, A, E, A, E, A. So if you notice, all that's happening there is my tongue, when I say E, is very high. E, A. Okay, so and that is why it is like this in the chart, because if you go on the top, the tongue is, this is a mouth, the tongue is very high. I'm not the best drawer. And then here, the tongue will be kind of here. And then on this one, the tongue is very low. Okay, so when you come down, the tongue comes down. Okay, so obviously we haven't got the time to go through all of this, but what I'm saying is there is logic to it and it can easily be learned. Okay, it's just movements. In fact, on this, one of the problems, I haven't included this in my presentation. Have you ever been in this situation where maybe a teacher says to you, like the difference between bed and bad, and they say, no, it's not bad, it's bed. And then you say bad, they say, no, bed. And you say bad, no, bed, bad, bed. The problem is there, and I've done that myself, okay, early on in my career. You're not getting any instructions about what movements you need to make. Now, if someone actually tells you, no, lift your tongue higher, open your mouth wider, okay, then you can actually do it. If someone just repeats the same thing, it's not helping. So this is actually the guy that invented this chart. I always like to show this. This was like one of the times I was starstruck. He invented this chart and basically taught me everything he knew about it. And one of the things he mentioned, which is true, is you need to really internalize these sounds like you have in your own language that you've done. Okay, so of the E and A, we'll just play a very quick game, okay? Because it doesn't always need to be boring, this pronunciation. So if I say sad and then I say sat, I am in Milan, okay? And for example, if I say bed and then dead, I am in Dublin. So I will say a couple and you tell me where I am, okay? You can put this in the chat, okay? So let's do this. So are you ready? Let's go. So said dad. Said dad. Where am I? Said dad. Said dad. Lots of people. Okay, it's a confusion between Athens or Sardinia. So yes, I actually was in Athens there because I said. So this has got an E, and then I said dad, and this has got an A. Okay, so doing this training with these sounds is going to be the first part to mastering the 44 sounds. Okay. Like there are lots of more things that you could do. So yeah, don't learn the sound, learn the movement. Okay. All of these things that look complicated, all they do is represent a movement. That's it. You just need to learn that movement. And there are specific movements, so someone can teach you. Like I said, it can be taught, like learning to drive a car, for example. Okay, so yes, study and master the sounds, because if you cannot say it, if you cannot produce this sound, studies have been shown that you cannot hear it. Okay, so if you can't say it, you can't hear it. So you really studied about how to make these sounds and internalize them. Okay, so that's again sort of how they can be connected. Once you can say it, you can hear it. Okay. Okay, so that's the first part, the sounds. So now we will, this means I want to say something that you need to write. Okay, so now we're going to look at the music. Okay, by that I mean syllables, okay, and stressed words. So I'm going to read a poem and I want you to write like 1 or 2 words that you remember from the poem. Okay, that's it. So let's go. I'm just going to read it, so it's quite short, and you just write 1 or 2 words that you hear. So let's go. There once was a fellow called Santa, who was ever so proud of his banter. He'd put on a voice and call himself Joyce and make silly calls from Atlanta. Okay, voice, proud, Joyce, Atlanta. Okay, fellow. Okay, so someone's got a few more. Okay, so when people are writing 1 words, I'm seeing things like Joyce, proud, Santa, banter, which is obviously they're all correct. And the reason you wrote those is because they are the stressed words. Okay, for example, if you write 1 word, nobody would write on, for example. Okay, because you're hearing the stressed words first and learning where these word stresses happen. That was an easier example. Is extremely important to understanding. And again, I'm going to demonstrate this later. So if, so I do this, for example. So if I said, where's Dave's lunch? Okay, now all of those words would be stressed, like where's Dave's lunch? Okay, all of these syllables. But what about this one? If I said, where was Marta's party? Where was Marta's party? You can write in the chat what you think is stressed there. Where was Marta's party? Where was Marta's party? What have we got stressed there? Where Marta? Okay, so I can see people have written party, but which part of the word party? Okay, so I see someone's written there, where ma pa, where ma pa. So yeah, and that is perfect. So where ma pa. So it goes like this: where was Marta's party? Okay, and then we'll do this one now. So if I said this, who was at Jennifer's barbecue? Who was at Jennifer's barbecue? Who was at Jennifer's barbecue yesterday? Who was at Jennifer's barbecue? Which ones are stressed there? So so yes, exactly. Okay, beautiful. So who, Jen bar. So who was at Jennifer's barbecue? Okay. Now, again, these were probably easier examples, but you did very well there. And let me just show you how this works in sort of learning. So this is my daughter. This was I don't know how long ago now, probably about 2 years ago, something like this, when she was learning to speak. And so I asked her what this was, and listen to what she says.
What is that?
It's Nana.
What is it?
It's Nana. Eating.
So if you notice there, she said it's na. So it would be like this, because the first part of that word is b, like the sound is like this, banana. But she hadn't even heard that. She couldn't understand. She wasn't producing that part. That hadn't registered yet. That first sound is so soft, but banana. So she was calling it nana. Okay, so it again is proof that learning these stressed syllables is really what we need to be listening and also for speaking. So where are we and how are we doing for time? Claire, how are we doing for time? Is there anything like specific time I need to be finished by? No? Okay. Okay, so what we're going to do now, so I'm going to read that poem again that I read, okay, and I want people to write it, okay? So in fact, I will do it line by line, okay? So I'll read the first line a couple of times and you can write it, okay? So, there once was a fellow called Santa. 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 Okay, yeah, lots of people have got that. Really good. Okay, so I noticed. So, okay, that's interesting, actually. So an interesting thing here is some people on the first word have written there, and some people have written the. Okay. In fact, let's just do the first line. Okay. Otherwise, it might go on too long. So this is the first line that I read. But when I said that, so again, if I said that in the greenhouse, that would be there once was a fellow called Santa. Then probably garden would be something like there once was a fellow called Santa. And more jungle would be there once was a fellow called Santa. The once. So if you notice there, I'm not even saying there anymore. That we've kind of lost that bit. And so now we've just got the once. Just quickly as well, what would be the stressed words in that? The once was a fellow called Santa. You can maybe write the stressed syllables again, because that's something we've looked at. The once was a fellow called Santa. There once was a fellow called Santa. What are the stressed syllables there? There once was a fellow called Santa. Okay, so yeah, I would say once fellow and Santa would be the stressed ones. But so when saying quickly, it's just the once. There once, and if you notice here in the greenhouse, this would be was a. Now, when I say that quickly, it's was a. There once was a fellow called Santa. So what actually happens in fast speech? In fact, I've forgotten something very important, actually. I'm just going to I'll draw it here. Has anyone seen this before? Does anyone know what this is? Has anyone seen this phoneme before? You can write it in the chat. If it's the most famous one, I think. Has anyone heard this before? Okay, schwa, yes. Okay, now this is the most common sound in English. Okay, and the good news is it's really easy to make. You just have to become an idiot like this. Okay, and then you just have to make a sound. So there should be no movement in any of your mouth or your tongue. So if you do this, or there should be no movement. Just like this. Like you ask it like a bored teenager, they say like, "What do you want to do?" Okay, that's it. That's all you need to do. It's the easiest sound to make. Now, so. Interesting fact that the schwa, someone told me, so it's called the schwa. I think in Hebrew, I'm not sure if anyone speaks Hebrew. Someone told me it means nothing, which is basically what it is. It's just nothing. But the reason it's so important is because many words transform and they take this schwa. Like this word is normally was, like sound, and now this becomes was. And so even here, was a fellow called Santa. We also lost the end of this word. There once was a fellow called Santa. If we looked at this one as well, it'd be who was ever so proud of his banter. So if you listen to this part, proud of his banter. So it sounds like divis, because you've lost the H there, and this has gone to a schwa. Divis banter, who was ever so proud of his banter. So when you study this connected speech and you understand what's happening, it's the same thing as the bicycle again. Remember the foldable bike. Someone's bringing it to your attention, and then when someone then is using that, it's like, okay, now I know what that is. When you don't know what that is, it's a problem. And we've looked at like 1% of the things here that can happen. But I also wanted to give people an opportunity to do a bit of speaking. Okay, let me show you what I mean. So we can do that first line. Okay, and then I can even give you some feedback. Okay, so don't record if you don't want me to listen to it. I won't be able to listen to all of them. if everyone does it. But this is how you do it. I'll send this link in the chat in 1 minute. Press record, and then you can just say that first part, like, there once was a fellow called Santa. Okay, there once was a fellow called Santa. So I'll be saying this. So there once was a fellow called Santa. Okay, so then you just have to click on start recording. I'm not going to be able to do that now. You click start recording, you start speaking, then you press stop, put your name, your email. If you're not, you can listen to it again like this. Let me do that. You click start recording, you start speaking, then you press. Okay, then if you're happy, you press send. If not, you press reset, and then you can do it again. Okay, so I'm going to put this link in the chat, and your job is to record yourself saying, there once was a fellow called Santa. Because remember, if you can say it, you can hear it. Okay, so that's the reason behind this. Okay, so I've just put that in the chat. So remember, just click. Oh, actually, I've just remembered something else I wanted to show you. This may help you. So if you listen to it, this is me saying this, slow down. Okay, so have a listen to this before you do it. And then you can really notice these things of connected speech. When someone slows it down for you, it becomes much more obvious. Sorry.
There once was a fellow called Santa.
So if you can really notice it. There once was a fellow called Santa.
There once was a fellow called Santa.
And then if you were to do the other one that we looked at, for example,
who was ever so proud of his banter.
But we're doing this one, okay? So in fact, we'll listen to it going slow to fast, okay? And you'll be able to really hear the difference.
There once was a fellow called Santa. There once was a fellow called Santa. There once was a fellow called Santa. There once was a fellow called Santa.
Okay, so if you click on that link, has anyone clicked on it? Click the link, record just. Okay, yes, exactly. And then I'll listen to one or two, just seeing if any have come through. Remember, click the link, and you just have to say, there once was a fellow called Santa. In fact, maybe if I show you this. Okay, and I can even show you how it should be. Okay, so the once let's say was a fellow called Santa. There once was a fellow called Santa. Okay, I've got someone here. Okay, I've got a few people. Well done. So I'm going to listen to these now, and then I can give you some feedback on them. So let's listen. Yep, okay, let's go.
One was a fellow called Santa. One was a...
Maybe that was the thing of the microphone, but just that first part needed to be like the once. Otherwise, it was good. You got the was-a really good there.
There once was a fellow called Santa.
Okay, so for that one, what I would say there is you want to lose that last called, like called Santa. It almost sounds like call Santa. Let's go. Let's listen to this one.
There once was a fellow called Santa.
Okay, so the same there. I hear like called Santa, which is fine for garden speaking, but to practice jungle, to understand jungle, you really want to go for called Santa. There once was a fellow called Santa.
There once was a fellow called Santa.
Because you hear that called. Let's have a listen to one more.
There once was a fellow called Santa.
Okay, that was pretty good, that one.
There once was a fellow called Santa.
The only small thing I would say there would be the first part instead of there, the. But doing these exercises, these what I call speaking for listening purposes, because again, once you can say it, you can hear it. Okay, and you're going to be much more familiar with people using this sort of these techniques, these jungle listening, let's say. So where are we? Okay, yep, got that. Okay, so yes, and again, doing this technique of speaking for listening, repeating these things, again, will help you become a fluent listener and fluent speaker, which remember are very closely connected. Okay, because if you can hear it well, you should be able to say it well, and when you can say it well, you should be able to hear it well. Okay, so where are we? So yes, that's the 44 sounds. Then we've got the music. Okay, so now we're going to do the last part, which is some real jungle English. Okay, so we're just going to, it's just like 2 lines to transcribe. Okay, so this is someone talking. So this is this part, retraining your ear with transcription. Okay, because after you've done these 2 parts, this next part will become much easier. Okay, now we've done like 1% of these things, so this, believe me, is going to be very difficult. Don't feel bad of like, oh my god, I don't understand anything. I've never had anyone actually get this all correct. Okay, so you can use pen and paper or write it in the chat. Okay, we are going to listen to something, and I want you to write what you hear. Okay, let me just find the thing. I'll play it once, and then I'm going to play it many times because obviously it's going to be difficult to keep up. Okay, right. So to give some context as well, this is a UK musician who was talking about his album. Okay, he was talking about, someone asked him about like where the inspiration came from when he wrote the songs. Okay, so let's go. So see if you can hear this. Sorry, I've got that on slow speed. Let me do that. Normal speed. I'll put it on normal speed, then I will actually slow it down.
Yeah, I mean, it all comes from my own experience. That's why I feel like it's a true story.
Okay, so I'll play that again.
Yeah, I mean, it all comes from my own experience. That's why I feel like it's a true story. Yeah, I mean, it all comes from my own experience. That's why I feel like it's a true story.
You did hear that. You can hear that. Yeah, I'm not just listening to that myself. I actually had that once. So I had a listening practice with some students, teenagers, 5 minutes long. At the end of 5 minutes, they said, we didn't hear that. So
yeah, I mean, it all comes from my own experience. That's why I feel like it's a true story. Yeah, I mean, it all comes from my own experience. That's why I feel like it's a true story.
So I'm actually going to slow this down now and see if this helps at all.
Yeah, I mean, it all comes from my own experience. That's why I feel like it's a true story. Yeah, I mean, it all comes from my own experience. That's why I feel like it's a true story.
Okay, so we've got the couple of... Oh, okay, I think we've actually got... So, like, lots of, like, the true story for... But what the objective is literally to get every single word, okay? Because that, once you do that, that's like fluent listener. So we've got a few different things here. Any more people want to try? So I think we actually did get one correct answer. Yeah, we've got one correct answer, which is amazing. So well done. Years. Sorry for the pronunciation. So this is what it should be. This is what he says. Now it's very difficult because he says like yeah mean it all, yeah mean it all, yeah mean it all, yeah mean it all. So yeah mean it. So we've kind of lost this. Well, I mean, sorry, this is joined to there. Yeah mean it. This is what's known as a glottal stop, and I'm going into a bit more, too much detail here. I mean, it all comes from moan experience. So my own almost sounds like this now, moan. because you've actually lost that part. And this is a really common thing which happens when losing like sounds, especially in the word my, moan experience. So if we listen to that again on slow motion, hopefully that might make a bit more sense. So clicking lots of buttons here, let's go. Other things that have happened there. So mean has normally got a long E. You would say mean. Okay, but he actually says, yeah, I'm in. So it sounds like it rhymes with bin. Yeah, I'm in. I'm in. So it kind of sounds like this, like, yeah, I'm in. Yeah, I'm in. So all of these things which are happening, this is very jungle English, and there are even rules in the jungle of things that happen. So once you go in there and you can fully understand what is happening, in my example of what comes in will come out clearer, it's exactly like that, because it's coming in clearer because someone has brought your attention to it. So yes, as mentioned, fluent listener, fluent speaker, fluent listening, because if you can say it, you can hear it. But your first step is to do this and to understand how English works, the mechanics of English, the sound training. Because, as mentioned, if you want to make that jump up to there, it's not only grammar and vocabulary you need someone to actually sit down with you and go through this sound training with you. So yes, focus on becoming a fluent listener. So as we've spoken about these things of how to become a fluent listener, so you can master the 44 sounds of English. There are lots of videos on YouTube. You want to study syllables and connected speech, see how it all works. And then once you've done all of that, literally just start transcribing even 10 seconds of what someone's saying and understanding what is happening in this fast speech. Okay. Because once it has been brought to your attention, like the foldable bike, it will make much more sense. Now, if you would like to see all of this in one place, I have a course called Jungle Listening. Like I said, you can look at lots of videos on YouTube, but if you want it all in one place, I have a course called Jungle Listening, where we do exactly this. We look at the 44 sounds, we study the music, connected speech, and then we work our way up to this transcription to bring it to our attention. So yes, as mentioned, this is the traditional approach, which I'm not saying is bad, but certainly when you get round here, to make that final jump, you need to look at sound training, okay? Which is not something which people normally do, which is why one of the reasons people have difficulty getting there. Now, I could show you lots of reviews of my course, but I just want to show you this one and a couple of others, because it changed the way I hear English and speak English. Because on that note, actually, the traditional approach, because when you do one of those courses, like I said, they are good, but you might be studying things which you don't use very much, and then you might forget that vocabulary that you study, like debunk. If you do sound training with me or with someone else, it will change the way you hear and speak English forever, okay? Because it's removing that block, the block that we spoke about earlier. It's removing this, okay? So it's coming into your head like this and not like this, okay? So yes, this is someone else that has just mentioned the same, someone that lives in the UK. So if you live in the UK, especially, you definitely need to do sound training. And if you do sound training, it will change the way you understand and communicate with lots of people. And I think that's it. Oh, also, if there are any English teachers here, by the way, I've had many English teachers do this course, because pronunciation and everything is actually a very difficult thing. And so I break it down. So I've had many English teachers do the course, and they then take these things and use them in their classroom. So if you're an English teacher, also again, sound training is very useful because students love it. Okay, so yeah, if anyone does want to do it, it's £197 usually, but you can get £100 off for the first 5 people, because I like people that take action. If you take action first, and for the first 5 people, you can get £100 off. And then anyone after that that's attended, if you write Summit 70 off, you'll get £70 off. I can give you the link if anyone's interested. Here is the link. So yeah, that's so Summit 70 off. There seems to be an extra bracket in there, I think, Claire. So yeah, Summit 70 off. If anyone's interested, just okay. No, I thought I had something of what to do. Yeah, well, it says redeem coupon, and then you can do it there. I also had another picture of saying if anyone wants to get in contact with me for any questions, I'll write it in the chat. It was just an image with me with my email address, which is this. If anyone has any things to say, any questions or anything like that. So yeah, that's it. I hope you enjoyed it. Like I said, sound training, I truly believe, is the key to fluency. And you can do that with me or with someone else, but just make sure you take the time to do it if you want to make that final step. So yeah, there we go.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Martin. That was an amazing talk. Lots of tips. Before I go through some of the comments and the questions, I just wanted to alert people to the chat. So Martin's email, Martin and Rock and Roll English. Then there is also, he's put in the link to Jungle Listening. I have as well. Take Action First 5, you get a massive discount. Then Summit 70 off. You get another really lovely discount.
Yeah, so the Take Action 5 is for the first 5 people. They get £100 off. So there's only 5 of them. And then anyone else that wants to do it, Summit 70 off. You get £70 off. So someone said, what is the price? The price is £197, but if you do the Take Action First 5, it will be £97. If those are gone, Summit 70 off, and then it will be £127.
Perfect. Thank you very much indeed. So I just want to say a couple of things that I thought was so useful. And obviously, you know, I'm also a teacher of English, but some of the things that Martin has said also made me think this is absolute, what we say, absolute gold. So I had made some notes, Martin. I hope you don't mind.
Okay, sure, yeah.
Because I'm going to remember this. So you think that you say that don't learn the sound, learn the movements. Which I thought was so useful, because we often say, yes, it's not not or not or, and so on and so on. And it's not very helpful. But if you learn where that sound is made in your mouth and the position of your tongue and how maybe your mouth goes like from a round to a stretch sound, when you learn those movements, you learn those sounds. And I wonder if anyone here has had this sort of this like wow moment. If like me, you always think, yes, it's not but now with Martin's training to learn the movement, quick show of hands, is that useful for other people as well? Because for me, it was really, yeah, we've got a show of hands. It's really, really useful.
I just wanted to add something, which I realized I forgot. On that, a really good thing to do is when you do that, you need a mirror, because what you think you are doing with your tongue is often not the situation. So if you're doing it alone, you need a mirror. At times when I've done this with students, I've said, for example, put your tongue down, and then they don't move their tongue. And then I've even showed them a video. So I know, look, this is what you need to do, because what you think you are doing with your mouth is not always the case, because these movements, the movements from your language are so ingrained in you that it's quite difficult to learn something new. As mentioned, our bodies don't like foreign things. Like, so if someone's trying to teach your mouth a new movement, it's not very easy, and you're naturally going to go back to your standard one. Okay, so get a mirror and see if you're actually doing it, because your mouth is just it's your speech instrument. Okay, and like a guitar, if you make specific movements, I don't play the guitar, but if you make specific movements, it will make a specific sound. The same with this instrument. If you make specific movements, it will make a specific sound. It's just the fact. Like I said, if you do this, and in fact, everyone can do this now. If you do this and then open your mouth slowly, the sound is different because your mouth is in a different position. So yes, use a mirror if you're doing this.
That's a great tip. Thank you. Now, I've had a couple of questions. Just first of all, lots of thank yous. Thank you so much. Really interesting, amazing, really useful, fantastic. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We've got lots and lots of thank yous, which is really nice. I've got a question. Did I understand the sentence from the first time? It's all right. Sight. No, I didn't. So I didn't understand it either, Vadim. I think also, I mean, I would have understood it in the context if I had seen Martin on his bike saying, it's right.
Yeah.
I would have understood that, but no, I didn't. So I have a question for you, and it's about shadowing. So, Yaz, sorry if I mispronounced your name. Yabsira asks, is this the way we should do shadowing? And that's with, I think with the mirror technique. It may be a bit challenging to see our own mistakes.
So on the shadowing thing, like people just say like shadow, but again, if you're doing that without any instruction, that is really difficult. So again, something I do in my course is something that we did a little bit of earlier. So you want something very short and you want to hear it very slowly first, like we did. Okay. So
there once was a fellow called Santa.
And then if you've seen it in the written form as well, you know what you're looking for there. So I know I want to go up. I know where I need to sort of go quieter. So there once was a fellow called Santa. So to really get that in first, and then you can shadow at normal speed like this.
There once was a fellow called Santa.
Because it's going to be a lot easier to do the shadowing once you know what you're supposed to be doing. If I just say like, just follow me, I just speak like me with nothing before, that's difficult. If it's been broken down visually and like via audio, then it's a million times easier. And so, yeah, shadowing is a good technique, but as you mentioned, it is very difficult to do, especially if no one's prepared you for it.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you. If anybody has any other questions or comments, anything that you'd like to share with us. Yes, thank you. Yabsira says thank you for that explanation. Anything else that you would like to ask Martin? Make the most of the fact that he is here with us. Anything that you'd like to ask him? Anything you weren't sure about? Okay, I've not seen any other questions or comments, but I would like to say, Martin, thank you so much for sharing your expertise here. It's really useful to hear about all the steps that you can go through to become a more fluent listener, and obviously to reiterate the importance of listening and the fact that how closely linked it is to fluency. So if you can't say it, you can't hear it. So the two things really are linked together. And as you said, we always focus on, hey, let's learn more vocabulary. But at a certain point, that's just not going to help us. What we really need is to train our ears and then to train our mouths with mirrors or whatever to make sure we're making those sounds.
Just one thing which I forgot to say, which I think I deleted at the last minute of my presentation. An example of this is subtitles. Okay, I want a show of hands here. How many people understand films or TV with subtitles but not without? How many people? Anyone understand with subtitles but not without? Okay, I see. Yeah. So that is a demonstration that you know those words. Because if you can see them in the written, then they're not words you don't know. It's not a problem that you don't know the words. You're just having difficulty recognizing them. That's the only problem. So someone needs to train you how to recognize those words, because that demonstrates your English is good enough already to understand a film, because you've got that vocabulary. Of course, there are going to be some words you don't understand, but that's the 11%. Remember, the 89%, I guarantee you already know. If you watch a film, like it's going to be 89% of words that you already know, at least. Your difficulty is that you can't recognize those words, and that's what's causing you problems. So that's why you need to do the training to recognize those words. If you just have 1,000 words, which is not a lot, you should be able to get by easily. So it's actually a lot of the time focusing on what we already know, like grammar and vocabulary. That's generally often, or certainly at this level, good enough. The problem is then the sound training, which will help you recognize it all, because like I said, you do know those words. Your English is good enough to understand a film, you just can't recognize the words. And the thing is, often they are such simple words, as we saw, like it's all right. It's often such simple words just said at that speed. So once you do the sound training, that's going to make it much easier. And as I said, the sound training changes the way that you hear English forever. Another traditional course, like I said, they are always good, but often you're going to forget that grammar and vocabulary because it's not the 89%, it's the 11% that you're looking at. So yeah, there we go.
Perfect. If you have a spare minute, Martin, I do have a couple more questions for you.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. And the question's from Ayako. I live in the USA. Are there a lot of differences between American English in terms of pronunciation? I found Americans speak faster than people in Britain.
That's really interesting because I always hear the opposite. So yeah, of course there are differences, but again, if you learn the 44 sounds, there are only the 44 sounds. Okay, so if you know them, you know all of the sounds. They maybe use different sounds at different times, but the Americans faster than people in Britain. I hadn't heard that because Americans open their mouths more, which is easier to understand. I always use the example of the word, as an American would say, category. Like, which category? An English person would probably say category. Like, whilst the Americans are going to really open that more. So yeah, it's interesting to know that you find Americans speak faster than people in Britain. Like I said, I hadn't heard that one because they normally, as mentioned, open their mouths a lot more. Whilst in the UK, we mumble a lot more. I've heard so many times, like, people, we don't move our mouths, just mumbling. Yeah, that's people in the UK for you.
There is a question from Nora. Is this way of speaking, is it okay at an exam?
So as mentioned, jungle, you don't really want to speak jungle English. You want to speak the garden. That is the objective because you're clear. However, by practicing jungle, that is going to like help with fluency, speed, and it's going to help you speak like the garden. So you can practice it. Remember, the real reason you're practicing is for listening, but it's also going to help you with fluency. So it's going to help you sound more of garden English, which is the target for speaking. And I myself, right now, I'm speaking in garden English, and I do that if I'm at work, for example, because as mentioned, I'm a lecturer at university in London. If I'm in a meeting and I have to present to my English colleagues, I will still use garden English because you need to be clear. Barack Obama, when he talks to people, he speaks in garden English because he wants to be clear. He wants people to understand. But if I'm in the pub with one of my friends, I'm going to be speaking in jungle English. Yeah, I can't remember how we. Oh, so that was the question about the exam, wasn't it? So yeah, you want to aim for garden English, like a nice, fluid and clear for exams. But certainly it will help you for the listening part of the exam as well.
Lovely. Thank you so much. Martin, thank you for such an interesting talk. And really, I think we're all going to go away with a better understanding of fluency and listening and how they're all connected. So thank you very much indeed. Thank you for such an interactive talk as well. It was really fun to write in the chat. And well done, everyone. I think you did brilliantly.
Yeah,
You
I
were
agree.
really, really good.
Yeah.
Thank you very much indeed for coming and for taking part and for making the most of Martin. So thank you very much. Just a very quick reminder, at 6 p.m. UK time tonight, we have our final session. And in the session, we are going to have free conversation practice. You can meet with each other, you can chat. So please do come along and practice some of your fluency. Yes, the listeners asked very quickly for the fluency Facebook group. Let me just put this in here for you while you're here, Alyssa. I'm just going to type that in really quickly. There we are. So yes, come along and join the Facebook group. It's free. So see you all later at 6 o'clock. Thank you very much indeed for coming along. Thank you once again, Martin, for such a brilliant, inspiring talk. And Martin, will you attend the wrap party? I'm not sure if you're able to, Martin. It's at 6 p.m.
Oh, it's at 6 p.m. Unfortunately, that's the time. I've got 2 young children, and the time where sort of dinner and stuff, my wife would probably kill me if I did that at the last minute. I have to book that like 2 weeks in advance if I'm allowed to avoid that time. So unfortunately,
don't take time away from your family.
No,
but thank you very much.
To.
I really appreciate you coming along. Thank you so much, and hope to see you later. Of course, if you have any other questions for Martin, you have his email, or you can contact me and I will send on your questions to Martin. Thank you so much. See you a bit later.
Thanks a lot.
Take care. Thank you very much, Martin. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
See you later.